started.
Okay, so I'll start. Good day, everyone, and welcome to our live sharing session. So today, Minhaju and I, we will talk about something every single one of us in this room has experienced, which is the difference between how adults are taught versus how adults actually learn. So if you look at our infographic poster right here, you will see our main topic, which is application of Malcolm Knowles adult learning theory in higher education and human resource development. So, as future HRD professionals and educators, why does this matter to us? And that brings us to Nola's first principle, which is the need to know. And this principle is specifically mentioned that adults don't just absorb information passively, but we need to understand why a topic is relevant to our careers before we commit our time and energy to it. So let me pause right here and ask a quick question to the class. So when you attend a course or a training workshop, what makes you feel engaged right away? Is it listening to a lecture slide or knowing how the topic will actually help you in your work or studies? Anyone? Am I too fast? Okay, I repeat. So, when you attend a course or a training workshop, what makes you feel engaged right away? Is it listening to a lecture slide or knowing how the topic will actually help you in your work or studies? No? Okay, it's fine. So, I will just continue to part two, which is our research findings and the implementation gap. So, look at the middle section of our infographic here, which highlight our research data. So, when we analyzed the research, we found a huge contradiction, and we refer to Galeta and Raju 2026 journal and they surveyed university instructors and discovered that while educators possess high theoretical awareness of adult learning principles, actual classroom practice remains overwhelming teacher centered. And let's break down what the empirical number shows. So the first one is underutilization of active learning. So we found this through Siam and Basha article, which found that active learning methods score a mean of only 2.42 out of 4, and that falls into rarely used category. So these techniques like role playing and project based management scored the lowest. Okay, secondly is ignoring past experience. According to Desta and Guksa 2022, they revealed that FACE rarely structure activities that tap into adult participants, participants rich life experiences. In fact, peer-to-peer discussions were often dismissed as noise rather than valuable learning. And the third one is lack of learner autonomy. This is based on Galeta and Raju article again that showed that while instructors scored high in giving feedback, learners were completely excluded from setting learning goals. So before I pass to Minhaju, let me quick show of hands please from everyone. How many of you have sat in a class where the lecturer talked non-stop for 2 hours without asking for your prior work or life experience? Great. Okay. So, and as the research shows, that is the exact implementation gap we are facing. So now, I'll pass the floor to Minhaju to explain how we bridge this gap in corporate HRD and align it with global education goals.
Thank you, Miss Kimberly, for your lovely session. I think there is a question in the chat. Maybe you answer it first.
All right. I'm unable to view the chats. Why?
It's okay if you are unable to read the chat. I just repeat the question.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
Miss Jui is asking, in your presentation, you mentioned that Jeleta and Raju, their research showed that they have found an ANOVA result which consists a p-value of 0.415 regarding the teaching experience. What does that statistic actually mean for us as future trainers? I think it's a really good question. Maybe you can put a little more light on this.
Okay, so that's a great question. So, in statistics, a p-value higher than 0.05 means there is no statistically significant difference between the groups being compared. So in this study, it means that veteran professors with over 15 years of experience were just as likely to rely on traditional teacher-centered lectures as brand new instructors. And this tells us that the gap in adult learning is not caused by a lack of teaching experience, but it's caused by an institutional culture that defaults to lecturing. So, as future HRD practitioners, our goal is to actively train faces on how to shift that culture toward learner-centered facilitation. Yeah. Okay. The stage is yours.
I
Oh,
think if
thank
there
you.
is no more question, then I start with my part. Hi everyone, I'm Minhajul. First, I would like to thank Miss Kimberly for such a lovely session. Now, for my part, uh, first I would like to say sorry because my throat is a bit heavy today. I'm running under the weather, so I hope you guys can understand me clearly. If you cannot understand anything, just ask me to repeat it again lah. It's okay. So thank you, Miss Kimberly, again. So now we are going to reflect on how does the study of Jeleta and Raju conducted back in 2026 relate to the six assumptions of Mr. Malcolm Knoll, and how can we relate it to the SDG goal 4, which is quality learning. So, how does the findings from our research uh, can be applied in the real world in our corporate training and human resource development? If you look at the lower section of our infographic, you will see that we have discussed about the Malcolm Knowles outlines regarding the six core assumptions of andragogy, also known as the adult learning. To operationalize them in workplace, we need to shift our role from an authoritative lecturer to a learning facilitator. So basically what we need to do is, from our research and findings, we need to come from a teacher centered learning to a learner centered learning. So to do that, we need to ensure that the learners are uh, well known with these kind of concepts. The six assumptions of Mr. Knoll mentions that there should be self-concept and autonomy. So instead of forcing rigid training schedules on our students, as trainers and HRD practitioners who guide others to learn new skills or reskill them, we should always give them the freedom to select their own topic that they have interest in. If they do not have any interest in that topic, then as adults they find it really hard and difficult to grasp that topic, and it becomes really hard for them to apply that knowledge in their real world scenario, uh, for example in their workplace. So if they can relate that knowledge to their workplace or their previous prior experience, then it becomes really easier for them to explain and understand how the knowledge they are learning from us they can apply it to their workforce. The second concept is role of experience. So before we start any training session, we need to assume that the participants they need to be ready for that training. So before starting every training session, we should ask the participants to share their real challenges they have already faced in their prior experiences, so we can just create the training session and modules according to their needs. So when we are like creating a training module or session, we should always create it in such a way that caters our trainee adult learners, because if we cannot relate it to their work life experience, then it's kind of pointless, because at the end of the day they won't learn much from that session. So as a trainer, our first priority and the most importance that we give should be, we should always think how can we uh, give the trainees give the trainee adult learners the most out of our session. The third thing that we need to consider is the orientation to learning. So we need to shift from abstract theory based learning to a much more hands-on case study and real time troubleshooting based learning. So when a trainee or a student uh, they are given just theories and uh, instruction to learn something without any application in the real world, or they cannot just relate it to their experience, the outcome of that learning becomes they themselves don't know what to do with that knowledge they have acquired from our session. So when we shift from an abstract theory based learning to a much more hands-on case study based learning, the student gets the freedom to learn from their case studies. They get to make mistakes, and from the mistakes they learn much more better than theory based learning sessions. The fourth one is the orientation to learning. So when we come up with our learning session or modules, we need to consider that the students, are they able to cope up with their day-to-day life and also continue the training. So when we're creating the training sessions, we need to consider that the students and the trainees they also have their work life balance, so they can find the time to manage their time and learn something new and upskill them, or maybe go for the reskilling for themselves. The final one should be the intrinsic motivation. So as trainers or HRD practitioners, we should help learners to see how mastering the skill we're teaching them will help them in their professional and career growth. So when the learners and the trainees they see the final result, for example we are teaching them a course on web development. So when the students they find that okay, if we learn this course and we get the skill about web development, then we can apply this to our day-to-day job. Maybe it will help us to secure a promotion, or it will help us to be much more better in our current job positions, then they become more enthusiastic to learn about that session. So as trainers and HRD practitioners, we should always consider the intrinsic motivation of the trainees. So like I mentioned before, we try from our research and findings, we try to relate it to Mr. Malcolm's 6 assumptions as I explained it now before. So does anyone have any question regarding this? If no one has any question, then I'll just move on to our next part, which is SDG4 and how does it relate to our research and findings. If anyone has any question, don't feel shy to ask it. I think there is no question, but from the chat I can see that someone sent a feedback on during Miss Kimberly's session. So that person is saying, oh, they are just sharing their experience with their workplace. They are saying that when they attended a course, usually knowing and understanding their topic, it helped them most in their studies. Yes, that's the main assumption as a trainer we should make as well. So when we are creating any courses or maybe a training session or the modules, we should always consider that if that topic can be related to the trainees work life or to their previous experience, then it becomes easier for them to understand that topic much faster, and it becomes easier for them to become a master of that topic. So moving on to my next part. So from our research and findings, how can we relate this knowledge to SDG 4, Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is quality education for everyone. So as trainers or HRD practitioners or maybe coach, we should always try to relate our study materials, training session to a much more effectful learning style, so it becomes the quality education for people from all backgrounds, races, cultures, or age. When we adopt these adult centered methods, we try to directly support them to the SDG Goal 4 so that it can be emphasized on improving the teacher training and facilitator quality. So when we try to improve the quality of education for our trainees, it becomes much more easier for them to develop their own careers and also be much more impactful during the organizational development as well. So as HRD practitioners, designing a much more learner centered environment is something that we cannot just avoid. So instead of just creating an environment that is much more teacher centered, we should always try to consider to create an environment which is much more safer, and the trainees, uh, they feel safe to ask questions, they don't feel shy to ask questions, and they are much eager to learn about the topic. It becomes an environment that is much more resilient, and it also supports the lifelong learning workplace methodologies. So now, to make this session truly adult centered and interactive, we want to open up the floor for you guys to ask any more questions. Does anyone have any questions regarding our research findings or statistical data or workplace HRD applications? If you want to ask the questions, I give you few more minutes. Maybe you guys reflect on your prior experience in your workplace. You can also share your experience, give us more feedback, or you can ask questions regarding our research. So I give you some time to ask me questions. You can also ask Miss Kimberly some questions. Guys, don't feel shy to ask questions or can share your experience as well. Okay, we have a question in the chat. So Amit Hassan is asking, how can HRD managers pursue upper management to adopt adult learning principles when senior executives usually prefer short, cheap lecture style training? That's a really good question. I can see that Mr. Amit, he has some previous experience in this regard, where he wanted to pursue the learning principles that are much more learner centric, but the senior executives, they usually prefer short, cheap, and lecture style training. That's really unfortunate that you have experienced such a experience in your workplace before. Uh, the thing is, I cannot change the perspective of your senior managers, but we can try to explain it to them how adapting a much more learner centric style will help you guys to be better at your job. So in order to do that, I think you can explain it to your senior managers using the Kirkpatrick's level 3 which and level 4 assumptions, which is behavior change and results. You can try to explain it to them that traditional lecture styles such as video often result in low knowledge retention and almost zero behavior change back on the job. If you can show it to your management that by giving you some problem centric courses or lessons, it would help you to be more interactive during the workshops, and it will lead you to immediate performance lead it and it will lead to your immediate improvement in your performance. Then I believe that your senior managers will understand it, and they will try to like create lessons or training sessions that is much more catered for you guys. But again, like I mentioned before, you cannot always change the mindset of your senior managers, because we need to understand that there is a age gap between us and the senior managers. They have been teaching and learning using the old methods throughout their whole lives, so sometimes change needs a little bit more time. So in these matters, I would request or suggest you to be more respectful to your senior managers when you are trying to explain it to them that it's much more better for your generation if you guys get problem centered lessons, training sessions, or certification courses. It helps you to develop your career better, and it in the long run it also helps the development or the of the organization. So I think you can try to apply these methods in your workplace and try to pursue your senior managers lah. Any more questions? Guys, don't feel shy. If you guys have any more questions, please share it with us. Yes, please, you can ask the question. That's a really good question. How effective learning and teaching can build confidence. So you need to understand that when we create a training session which is much more train problem solving based and it's more effective for the trainees, then the trainees and the learners, they grasp the topic much more fundamentally. Their basics are cleared easily, and it becomes really easy for them to become a master in that particular topic or maybe that particular session. When the trainee, the employee, or our students, they find it much more easier to become a master in that particular topic, it builds up their inner confidence. For example, like I gave the example of the web development course before. For example, I have a student, let's call him student X, and I also have a student Y. So let's say I created a course which is much more catered for student X. So it becomes really easier for him to understand the basics of web development, and in the long run he becomes a master of web development. When he becomes a master of web development, it becomes really easier for him to apply that knowledge in his workplace, or he can also use that knowledge to apply for a promotion, or he can also uh, change his position in his workplace and go to the maybe IT department if he wants to pursue that. On the other hand, our student Y, he or she, they don't have any interest in web development at all, but we are forcing a rigid learning style, or maybe we're just asking them to learn something that they don't have any interest in at all. At the end of the day, the knowledge they acquire from that, they are not going to be able to apply that in the real world problem solving scenarios. Even if they can, they don't have any interest, so they are not going to use that in their workplace. So uh, if they don't want to use that knowledge, or they are not confident about that skill at all, that it actually hampers their confidence in their workplace as well. So we always assume that a student or trainee who is a master in that particular topic, it boosts their confidence when they are negotiating about their promotion, or when negotiating about a specific project they want to work on. It helps them better. So I hope the answer was clear to you. If you have any feedback, also can let me know, because I'm also a new trainer, or let's just say new uh, coach or guide. So I'm also learning from your constant feedbacks as well. Oh, thank you so much. So is there any more questions or feedbacks? I think if there is no more question, then we can conclude. Miss Kimberly, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining the session, and also thank you, Miss Kimberly, for such a lovely presentation. To wrap up our session today, I would like to say that bridging the gap between adult learning theory and classroom delivery requires us to move away from the rigid learning method from our old days, and we should all try to embrace learner autonomy, peer experience, and practical problem solving skills. Uh, Also, before we end this session, I would like to ask all of you who joined the session to fill out a feedback form that will be shared to you guys in a while. So please give us a feedback and evaluate how our teaching, how we try to. Please try to fill out the feedback form and evaluate our teaching skills. We are both Miss Kimberly and me. We are both new learners and also uh, trying to be teachers. So your feedback actually help us to better. And also this is for our assignment as well. So your feedback and evaluation would help us in our assignment as well. Thank you everyone for such a lovely session. I don't want to waste much more of your time because it's already too late during the lunch break. You guys have a lovely day and enjoy your lunch. Thank you everyone so much.
Thank you.